So hello viewers, and in this video we are going to see that how the Cypress tests are being structured, or the different terminologies that Cypress is being used. And so there are certain distinct ways to run Cypress, basically directly from the CLI. So we don't need to open, if you have seen my last video, so we don't need to open the launchpad, Cypress launchpad that we have did in the last video to set up our Cypress. Also, if you have not watched that video, I'll give you a link over here in the I button, or you can check out probably in the description box. So watch that video if you not have Cypress set up in your environment currently. And yeah, in this video, so basically we'll see how to run the Cypress from the CLI and what is the basic structure and how we should organize our test. So let's get started with this video. So before we start, so in last video we had created a Git repository. So just to track your changes, so you might be learning, so you might want to take the learning snapshots. So in last video we had created a Git repository, so you can just commit the last changes, whatever you might have did as in first commit. And in this video, whatever the changes that will do, after that we'll have a second commit. So just to track your changes, that's the thing that I should mention. And yeah, let's start with the test. So yeah, over here if you see on the screen, so we have this sample site.js spec file. So basically we have created a end-to-end testing. So we used, so if you know the last video, we have used the npx Cypress open command to set up this folder structure. So basically it has created this Cypress config.js file. This is very important that we'll see in the upcoming videos, and this Cypress folder. So this Cypress folder, we have also seen the certain what is the meaning with this, what is the purpose of having this command.js and e2e.js in the last video. So in this video we are going to see that how we should structure our spec files. So in spec file there are two blocks. So as we have seen, so this was the basic or the sample spec file that has been created while we configured the Cypress for the first time. So if you see, it has describe and it block. So there are two basic blocks that you must be aware with. So the first is describe and the second is it block. So if you are aware about creating a test suites or test cases, so this describe block is nothing but the test suite. So if you know, so in one test suite we can create multiple test cases. So let's say for particular feature we will create a test suite. So let's say if we want to test login functionality, in that login functionality we might have different test cases. So let's say, what if we perform login with the bad credentials or the wrong credentials, then what should happen? And then let's say we create a login, or we log in with the right credentials, so what should happen? So we should be redirected to home page. So that are nothing but the test cases. And the testing login functionality, that is test suite. So let's say testing a resellable requester, so that might be our test suite. And it block, let's say whatever the first test case, visit the home page. So we should be able to visit this home page, so that might be our first test case. So we can structure the test cases in this it block. And one thing that you want to make sure is, so there is one function, so that function is it dot only, or not a function. So this is the chainable value, chainable option, it dot only. And what this does is, so basically if we have any it dot only block in our spec file, so Cypress will run only this it block. And if let's say we have multiple it blocks over here, so let's say it do or perform second test case, and we have certain code over here. So this will not be executed because we have only over here. So we need to make sure that whenever we do it dot only, that test case should be executed successfully. So that is how we should organize our it blocks. So each test case should be running individually. So that thing you need to make sure. And other than that, we have certain hooks. So let's say we have before each hook. So before each, we want to log in, right? And then we want to put our code which make our user or which perform the login action. So let's say we have a login page created or login functionality in our app, and before we perform any of the test case, we must make sure that we have login successfully. So this before each hook. So there are 4 hooks in the Cypress. So first is before each, then second is before, then third is after each, and the last hook is after. And by the names you might know that before each, which means whenever a each block has been executed, before each each block, this before each hook will be executed. So whatever code we put over here, that will be executed before any of these each blocks. So let me just do console.log and put inside before each. So over here also let me create a code that will have all the hooks, and we'll meet you after that. So yeah, here we are. So as you can see on the screen, so this is the code which uses all the 4 hooks, and we have 2 test cases defined over here. Now the before hook is usually executed before all the any of the test cases in this particular describe block has been executed, and after, as the name suggests, all the it blocks has been executed. After that, this block of code will be executed. So this is like before all and after all. And there are certain other hooks such as before each and after each. Now position or the where we have this after block or before block, that doesn't matter, because after block that will be executed after all the blocks has been executed, and before block will be executed before any of the it block has been executed. And this before each and after each, that will be executed, as the name suggests, before any of the each block has been executed, or before all of the it blocks and after all of the it blocks. So we can also observe the how the execution has been going on by putting this way of console log and side.log. So there are 2 different logs. So first is console log and side.log. So the difference majority or the main difference between these 2 is, so the console log is usually you can see in the console log, so where you have the browser console, and in the browser console you can see this console log that we have kept over here. And the second one is side.log. So this you can see directly on the test runner or the launchpad that we have seen. So where there we can see all this side log by so that's the difference between this side.log and console.log. Now let's look at the example or the output of this console logs and side.log. So to see or to run this file, what you need to do is you need to basically use this npx cypress open command, which will open the Cypress launchpad. You need to choose the end-to-end testing, and you will be having this GUI opened over here. So this is basically Cypress launchpad, and once you click on any of this spec file, it will open the test runner, Cypress test runner. Now let us click this sample.sci.js file to run this spec file. So as you can see, all the tests has been successfully executed, and both of these tests that we have defined over here, so the first test case and the second test case, both are successfully passed. Now first of all, let's observe the console log. So browser log. So if you can see, first it says inside before, and at last it says inside after. So before any of the test case has been executed, it will be inside this before. So as you can see, that's console log printed over here. And if you see, position doesn't matter, so we have kept this before block before this second test case, but it has been executed before any of the test case has been executed. Now at the end we will have inside after, so that is basically this block, and console log. If you can see, this console log has been printed over here. Then so the first is this it block, so it visits the home page. So over here you can ignore this line. So inside before and inside before each and after inside after each, so that has been executed. And this second test case, so it doesn't do much, we don't have any code over here, but over here you will see before each and after each, because that will be executed before each of the test cases. So technically before this test case and after each this test case, both of this will be executed. And about this side.log, so we can close this console log and we can expand this. So if you see before all and after all, so we have before this inside this before block we have this side.log, and inside this after block we have this side.log. So before this, before all, you can see this log which says setting the environment variable, and that you can see over here. And after this performing second test case after all, you can see log clearing the local storage, and that is nothing but this console over here. So that's how the program has been executed, and that's the program flow of Cypress, and that's how you basically organize your test cases. I have kept this readme, so that there is let me just open the preview. So I have added this section which is called running test, and that describe the CLI commands to run and execute test cases using this. So if you don't want this this GUI, what we can do is we can open this terminal. So we can close this, we can clear the canvas, and let me type npx cypress run. So basically this will execute all the tests or the specs file that we have inside this e2e folder. Now if you see, the output will be shown like this. So this is very we can ignore this because that's the control C that we have did previously. So if you see, we have it has been detected, and so the Cypress has detected two spec files. So first is so you can see two found inside and this is the searched location. You can also modify this through this cypress config.js file that we will see how to do that, but for now you can just see that it has detected two files, sample.sci.js and spec.sci.js, and then it will start execute all of the spec file that it has found. So the first, it has started sample.sci.js, you can see running this file, and all the test cases, all the it blocks you will see over here, and this is the description or the describe blocks description that we might have kept in the test file. And as you can see, this is the output for this sample.sci.js. So basically there are two tests, and these are the number of passing, number of failed tests, number of pending tests, and video false. Basically if doesn't so if let's say there are no failing test case, we don't capture the video. So to execute this file, it took 2 seconds, and spec ran. So this is the information of the first test, and this is the information about the second spec file that has been created or executed. So it has the one just one test. So template spec, it successfully passed, and there are no failures, and there are no videos because none of the tests are failed. So it has this run finished. So basically all the spec file has been executed successfully, and at the end of the day, this is kind of like a summary of what are the spec file that has been executed. So this is like an overview that this file has 2 tests, 2 passing, none failed, none pending, none skips, and all spec passed. So this is duration for this particular spec file it took to execute all the tests that has been described over here. And that's very cool. You don't need a UI, and you don't need to do any kind of browser looking stuff. So that's the very cool example. And there are certain other options such as headed, which means if you still want in browser to see how the tests are executed, so basically it will open a browser window for you and it will perform the test. Then if you want to run just a specific spec file, then this is the command, this is how you can do that. And there are certain options, and each of these options that you might see over here that you can club and use. So let's say you want this spec file to run but with the headed mode, so if you want the browser also, then you can after the spec file you can also include this -f headed option, and that is very simple. You can get the idea of how to do that. So yeah, that's about today's video. We have seen what is the structure for the Cypress test that we will be using in upcoming videos, and there are different CLI options to run the test files from the Cypress. So yeah, that's it for today's video. We'll meet in the next one. Till then, keep learning and keep exploring.